What if I told you that the greatest point guard title was just taken by force? Steph Curry just shocked the world on his way to a gold medal. After struggling for multiple games in the Olympics, people started doubting the newly solo Splash brother. But now, people everywhere are ready to put their stamp of approval on him being the greatest point guard ever. So, what do you think about this? Yes, he's the best shooter ever, but does that surpass all the other attributes of a point guard? Tell that to Magic Johnson. The dude played center at one point to win the Lakers a championship. Is Steph really on top? To figure that out, let's rewind the tape on Curry and his Hall of Fame point guard peers and find out. Welcome everybody to the Steph Curry tape. Here, you'll see the constant off-ball movement, ridiculously deep shots, and a whole lot of mouthguard chewing. Are you truly a legend if you don't have an iconic move outside of the actual game? LeBron throws chalk, Kobe chooses jersey, KD tweets, and Curry munches on his mouthguard, which by the way went up for auction. The first thing in Curry's favor is his amount of championships. With 4 rings on his hand, only other dynastic teams rival Steph's Warriors. Only a select few people in the whole world reach this level of basketball. The opposition might push back and say a big part of his trophy case was because Durant joined his team. But at this point, take away his 2 rings with KD, and what are we looking at? A 2-time champion with 2 MVPs, one of which was the first ever unanimous vote. That's still a lot. Simply put, not one person voted against Steph as the MVP. Then the recent Olympic Games are something to take into account. Team USA was on the brink of elimination in the semifinals against Serbia. They were trailing in the 4th quarter before Steph Curry took over the game and lit up the court. As we already mentioned, Curry struggled in the initial days of Olympic basketball, but when his team needed him most, he showed up. Steph blew up for 36 points against Jokic and his crew. And then to repeat those kinds of heroics in the gold medal game against France. The 6'2" point guard getting a shot over Wemby deserves a gold medal and probably put his fadeaway dagger as the greatest shot in an Olympics final. I mean, we had LeBron and KD open, but it's okay for Curry to take that shot simply because he's the greatest shooter of all time. Superstar players have their signature moves, but what status do you reach when all the other superstars around start doing the same move in honor of your game winner? We'll discuss his shooting effect on basketball in a second, but let's take a moment to zoom out and consider what we're searching for. When you think of the textbook point guard, what do they do on the court? They run the offense. This means they orchestrate everybody in a way to help get his team the easiest shot available. So if we're going to say we're deciding on who the best point guard ever is, we should take this into account. For pure playmakers, think of guys like John Stockton and Steve Nash. Both players made a living off helping other people look good. Although they both averaged under 15 points for their careers, they are still celebrated as Mount Rushmore royalty of the position. Obviously, roles don't always follow textbook lines though. Needing no further explanation beyond these 2 words. Nikola Jokic. I think we can all agree that there's a gray area in what we want from each of our positions. Russell Westbrook averaged over 10 boards a game, and we celebrated that. Even simply put, the fact that the term score-first point guard exists suggests that they don't always have to pass to get their team the easiest shot. In Curry's case, the best way he could set up his teammates was by stepping further and further away from the basket. But before we even continue on the greatest point guard debate, we need to take a step back. The year was 2009. The Warriors were a franchise swimming in mediocrity for a while now. We're talking about a young Steph, a kid from Davidson that the NBA considered as far below NBA standard in regard to explosiveness and athleticism. At 6'2", he's extremely small for the NBA shooting guard position, and it will likely keep him from being much of a defender at the next level. But as luck would have it, the kid from Davidson came in as the 7th pick for the Warriors. And all this because the Timberwolves practically breaking both their legs by drafting 2 point guards directly ahead of him, Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn. And because of that, 6 years later, and Curry has already won a championship, along with the other drafted stars, Klay and Draymond. He also was the engine behind the best regular season record we've seen to date, beating the Jordan's Bulls record. Steph's small frame was part of the worry Minnesota had in drafting him. They had no idea he was going to reinvent the game itself. By extending his range beyond what coaches thought possible, Curry stretched defenses as they tried to keep everything cohesive. But claiming he revolutionized the game goes deeper than simply, wow, look at how far out he is. Steph has dramatically and drastically increased the number and range of threes all teams are now taking. Case in point, look at his chart. Do you see when the line starts to take off like Elon promised Dogecoin would? That is basically riding the coattails of Steph's powers. Has any other player impacted the game to this extent? Why didn't the entire league turn into Kareem skyhooks or Dirk fadeaways? Curry hasn't just taken over the NBA, he's taken over the basketball world. Let's not forget that because of him, Golden State Warriors is now the most valuable franchise in the NBA. In 2010, the Warriors were valued at $450 million, and years after Curry winning championships while being the most exciting player to watch, they're now valued at a whopping $8.2 billion. Steph is splashing on and off the court. Okay, enough about the baby-faced assassin. Let's bring in his competitors and see how they size up. Are there really any legends that are able to compete? First of all, we have Jason Kidd, a guy who may be seen as a big-time underdog for the title of GOAT point guard. But with retiring in second for all-time assists and multiple All-NBA first teams and defensive team selections, Kidd had more to his game than younger generations give him credit for. Following his entrance is a man already mentioned, Steve Nash. The mop-haired Canadian took the league by storm for a couple of years there in Phoenix. He even matches Steph's MVP trophy case to himself. The next man people bring up is Chris Paul, who I unfortunately need to immediately disqualify. CP3 is an amazing floor setter and his mid-range shot is deadly. But with him and Curry playing at the same time, how could we say his resume or actions on the court hold up to Steph's? I mean, enough said. That leaves two of the classic point guards of past generations. John Stockton is the current all-time assist leader. He got that point guard textbook as a kid and stuck to it above all else. One year, he almost matched his assists and scoring productions at 13.8 assists to 14.7 points a game. Let's not forget that he played during the Jordan era, so sometimes it's hard to remember how good the 170-pound point guard was. But then there's the guy who gives Steph the biggest run for his money. Magic Johnson dominated the league in the 80s, rival to only Larry Bird. It's hard to look at Magic's resume and not think he could have still held the title regardless of Steph if he got to play a little longer. The 6'9 point guard's scoring output peaked at 24 points a game. His assists hit 13 and rebounds 8. He won 3 and finished top 5 another 6 times. We've talked about table setters, floor stretchers, and what you want from your point guard, but in the case of Magic, he could do basically whatever you needed him to do. This showed when he played center in the finals while Kareem was sidelined in his rookie year. Yep, in case you forgot, it was his rookie year. The Lakers won that series and Magic led them to 5 rings, one more than Curry. So how do we stack these guys up next to Curry? Kidd and Nash hit fantastic highs during both their runs in Phoenix and Kidd in Brooklyn as well. Although he's the second all-time assist leader, I'm not sure you can hold Kidd up to Curry with 1 ring. On to Steve Nash, he might not have gotten rings, but he at least had the 2 MVPs and changed the game with his 7-second offense. But those MVPs get dicey once you realize how contentious those awards were because of Shaq's dominance back then. Curry was unanimous in 1 year and easily won the other. Another point for Steph. Then we run into Stockton, whose case can still be dismantled by the same argument against Jason Kidd, but just maybe needs a little more force applied. So then we hit Magic, a guy with more MVPs, more rings, and more assists. What is the difference maker for Curry in this matchup? To answer that, we have to turn to the guy who is in the discussion, the GOAT of the whole sport, LeBron James. James has been the dominant name in the league for over 2 decades now, but although his name has lasted over headlines, how about his championship runs? Because it took Steph 6 years to win an MVP and a championship. It took LeBron 6 years to win an MVP and 9 to get a ring. After LeBron's second ring in Miami, he's won 2 since. So, for the past decade, LeBron has 2 and Curry has 4. For someone to be considered as the GOAT, dominance will always be part of the equation, just like how Jordan dominated the 90s. Unfortunately for LeBron, his era was dominated by Curry from championships and all the way to revolutionizing the game itself. Now tell me, who's the dominant name in the league? Magic Johnson is forever connected to Larry Bird. Magic got 5 rings to Bird's 3. Yes, he technically won the decade, but he wasn't getting unanimous MVPs and steamrolling teams in the finals like Steph has. The LeBron and Steph rivalry for the decade isn't as close as you'd think. Out of 4 finals matchups, LeBron only won once. It wasn't even close. Hence, after all is said and done, with multiple years still left in his career, Steph is undoubtedly the greatest point guard of all time. With him focusing on extending his range and accuracy, the rest of his game was able to thrive. Whether it's his off-ball movement, underrated finishing package, or his 6-assist average for his career, no point guard has impacted the game the way Steph has. Against all odds, Steph has proven that he is the greatest shooter and the greatest point guard of all time. But what do you think? Leave a comment below. Who did you have for the GOAT point guard? And make the case. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe for future NBA discussions.